Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. I hope you are enjoying your day. We're looking at a video called 11 Things Not to Do in Australia. Must see before you go. So these are always fun. I've seen these before for other places, things not to do here or whatever. It's kind of interesting. This is from a channel called Cal McKinley, and this was suggested to me by actually a bunch of people lately. So finally getting around to it. Let's just get straight to 11 Things Not to Do in Australia. Let's see what they are. Tell me if you agree or disagree with these in the comments, of course.
Number 1. Don't stray from the path. With over 66 different venomous species, which is the third largest concentration in the world, by the way, it's important to know where you are at all times. Now, this is especially true if you plan on trekking or camping in the outback. With things like the common brown snake, box jellyfish, and crocodiles, there's no shortage of dangerous animals here. So it's important that you stay on the path when you're exploring. And that goes for warning signs as well. Because while it may seem funny to some people from different countries, here they're very real and should be taken seriously.
Yeah. That one's pretty accurate, right? Stay on the path, stay where you know it's safe. You can get lost in the outback, especially, I think this mostly applies to especially inland by the outback. You can really get lost, you can get disoriented, it's really hot, it can be, right? And some of the places, it just looks like infinite, like vastness. And I can see, with kind of the same scenery in certain places like that, you could easily get lost. So I think that's a good guide. Stay on the path just for your own safety, right? Just so for your own awareness. But then, of course, there's tons of venomous stuff that could hurt you, right? If you're far off the path. So, the more trafficked, path you're on that's more familiar, more carved out, the better chance you're going to have that, some bad animals are not going to be right on top of that. They're going to be more in the remote places off the beaten path, correct? That one is straightforward. Obviously, someone like me who's learned a lot about Australia, I would know this going in now. But I think a lot of people that go to Australia, maybe as tourists, some of them might not realize how different it is compared to a lot of countries and how dangerous it could be. A lot of people come from smaller countries, don't know how big Australia is. That's one of my... Look at those koalas. The little, what is that, wallaby? Looks small.
Number 2. Don't underestimate the cost. Australia is known for having one of the highest living costs in the world, and traveling there is no different. Now, of course, this is all subjective depending on where you go and where you're from, but it still might surprise you to hear that a beer costs around $9 Australian dollars.
Wow.
And a meal at a mid-range restaurant costs around $40. Now, all in all, if you're really trying to save money, you can get it down to around $100 Australian dollars per day. And I'll just throw that number out there as an average. But between transportation, food, and lodging, the prices can get a bit expensive. Okay. So it's important that you price out your trip accordingly.
Yeah, that's what I've heard from a lot of you guys. I think that's pretty interesting, how expensive it is. I mean, it is what it is, right? It's a spectacular place, really big place, really established, really nice. I would say a very upscale country. What is interesting is, I've heard it's very, very expensive to the point where I didn't know how expensive it was until lately, hearing stories from you guys and seeing certain snippets from videos. For me, I tend to think of home here, the United States, as being pretty expensive. At least that's what, it's portrayed as around here. Like the United States is way more expensive than, Mexico. Canada is kind of, I guess, more expensive than us, which is actually crazy. But it's thought of as not cheap, but in reality, a lot of things are pretty affordable here. Gasoline is cheap here, even diesel fuel. Beer and alcohol and stuff. A lot of stuff is relatively cheap compared to a lot of other countries. So it is kind of weird to think from my old thinking that a vacation for a foreigner to the United States would probably be significantly cheaper than, say, a vacation to Australia. It is kind of bizarre to me, I will admit.
Number 3, and this is a short one. Don't say shrimp on the Barbie.
Yeah.
Now, this phrase was popularized by a 1980s ad with Paul Hogan, who was later in Crocodile Dundee. And it was sponsored by the Australian Tourism Commission to try to bring in international travelers. But this is absolutely not what an Australian would say. If they would even use that phrase at all, they would say prawn, not shrimp. So don't make it more annoying than it already is.
Yeah, that's a good way to get singled out as probably as the American in the group, or just definitely as a foreigner. Don't say that. Even I know that. Do not say throw some shrimp on the bobby, okay? Just don't do it.
Number 4, drinking in Australia. Now for this one, I'm mainly talking about major cities, specifically Sydney. So
Okay.
don't quote me on the rest of the country. But in Sydney, you can't get a beer after 1:30 in the morning because they have something called a lockout law, which means no one is allowed in or out of bars past that point in time. And their last call is at 3 in the morning. And of course, don't drink and try and drive because they have one of the lowest blood alcohol content levels, 0.05, before you can be arrested.
Yeah, I've heard that from you guys. Back to actually, believe it or not, racing videos. Peter Brock had the 0.5 number on his car in collaboration with the 0.05 law that whenever that went into effect, whether it be the 70s or 80s, I think. But yeah, that is lower than ours. Not too much lower. I mean, ours is 0.08 in most states here in the United States. So yeah, I don't condone that. I don't bother trying to drink and drive. It's not going to work. But yeah, that's interesting. So the lockout law is 1:30 a.m. Last call, he said, was at 3 a.m.? Did I hear that right? That's really late. Later than most bars in the United States. Last call is around 1:30, and you can stay there till 2 a.m., and then it closes. I always thought I heard that stuff in Australia closes really early, stores and restaurants and whatnot. So hearing that the bars are open later than American bars is kind of shocking to me.
But not least, don't order Foster's beer. That's not an Australian thing. That's an American thing. Instead, try and order a bottle of Bundaberg.
Isn't it?
My Aussie friends will know why.
Doesn't it come from Britain, Foster's? I don't know.
Instead, try and order a bottle of Bundaberg. My Aussie friends will know why I'm laughing.
Hold on, I need to hear that again.
Beer. That's not an Australian thing. That's an American thing. Instead, try and order a bottle of Bundaberg. My Aussie friends will know why I'm laughing.
Okay. Look at that. BB.
Number 5. Don't underestimate its size. Australia is a country with about 25 million people.
This one wouldn't be hard as an American, so maybe some other countries visiting Australia, this might be a shock, right? If you're coming from Italy or Japan or something, right? They're pretty small. The United States is huge. It's bigger than Australia. So this would not be hard.
Because it's a continent.
I'm used to things being far away.
It's made up of almost 7.6 million square kilometers. And despite the fact that the majority of its population is clustered around the coasts, in urban areas, it still means that as a tourist, it's going to take a long time to get from place to place. So it's important to take a look at exactly how long it's going to take you to complete your itinerary.
Yeah.
Number 6. Don't always tip. Now, unlike some countries, tipping isn't required in Australia. And that's mainly because their minimum wage is the highest in the world, at around $18.93 an hour.
That's
now, in places
amazing.
like the US, waitstaff require tips to earn a living wage.
Right, which is...
Because the national minimum wage is $7.25 an hour.
Which is a heavily flawed system. The whole waitstaff relying on tips here is unbelievably flawed. Really weird, really bizarre, and it seems like it is never going to change. That's honestly what it seems like. There's been pushback and reform efforts for years, and it's never going to change, I don't think, at least in the near future. It's just weird. It would also be weird, since we're forced to be used to it here as an American. It would be weird to go to somewhere like Australia, order a bunch of food at the restaurant, and it's just, you got to realize that everyone's different. So you guys don't tip, you're used to it. As an American, it's going to be weird to just figure out the price on the receipt of the meal and just pay it, and that's it. Like, it's going to be weird not to leave a tip. It's going to feel weird because we're programmed to do that. So that is a big culture shock for sure.
Now, if you have great service, for sure you should tip the person. All I'm saying is you won't be scorned like in the US if you don't.
Right. Yeah, hearing that, I would probably just still leave a tip. If they were really nice, the food was excellent, they were there to help us a lot, why not? Come on. Thank you for your service. Thank you for making this a great experience. Here's a few extra bucks. Like, what's the harm in that? Come on. Number
7, don't rely on public transport. Now, because Australia is so big and so spread out, public transport is difficult to find outside major cities.
Yeah, don't worry. Public transport's horrible in the US,
you can take a train to a small town, hop off, and then hop onto another train to another small town. Australia's just too big for that to be feasible. So you're better off finding other ways to get around.
That is a little bit annoying too. I'm sure now hearing this, because I've learned this in the past too, I'm sure for Australians, you guys can relate to this because this is kind of a similar problem in America and Australia. I'm sure that maybe you've been in a situation before. It's very annoying as an American hearing someone from a small country, like the Netherlands or England or Germany or something, right? Just some random, usually European country, and they just rip on the American public transport like, oh my God, American transport is horrible, blah, 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 right? Well, first of all, there are some cities that have some pretty good public transport. Of course, it's limited to just the city limits, but it's there. So we don't not have it. It is there. But here's the thing. When you're comparing some small country that has excellent public transport and then saying that the United States has horrible public transport, it honestly sounds pretty shallow, right? That's kind of a goofy thing to say. Why would you say that? It doesn't even compare. The United States is like 50 times bigger than so-and-so country. How the heck are we going to have public transport that works and is fast enough to be feasible? I'm sorry, going from one city to another in an hour, and then but we're expected to go from Los Angeles to New York, public transport, like that's goofy. Come on, dude, that doesn't even make sense. Australian states are even bigger, but there's a lot of very big American states just within the state. How are you going to have public transport even that is feasible? It's just too big. It's too big. It's too spread out, and a lot of people from smaller countries don't understand that.
Number 8, don't talk about immigration. Now, forgive me if I have to generalize a bit in order to get the point across.
Okay.
But for the most part, many Australians dislike the way that the government handles immigration, whether they're anti-immigration or whether they're disgusted by the way the government handles refugees.
Okay.
Of course, there's all the people in between. But the bottom line is that immigration is a big deal in Australia, and it's easier to avoid the topic.
Okay. I won't even open the bag on that. Just avoid immigration. Got it. That's a really big topic in America. Do not bring it up in Australia. Bingo. Got it.
Number 9, don't take anything personally. Now,
Yes.
Australians always seem to
I've
be
learned
joking
that.
around, and insults are one of the ways that they do that. But don't make the mistake of thinking they mean anything by it. There's a funny saying where you know that an Australian doesn't like you if they don't insult you, because it means that they actually think there's something wrong with you and that it'll offend you. Go figure. So take everything with a grain of salt.
I do. I love the way Australians talk. I love your brand of humor. And you guys come up with some clever stuff. Like, throw it at me. I love it. I don't take it personally at all. I think it's awesome. Never
Number
take
10,
life too seriously.
Don't be afraid to say hello. Australians have a pretty well-deserved reputation for being laid back.
Cool.
And like I was talking about before with the kidding around,
I can see that.
They're good at taking things in stride, which makes it easy as a tourist to make friends. And talking to people is a must.
Yes, I think that's one of the best things about Australia, best qualities that I can see from afar is that a lot of people just have great personalities, very welcoming, very generous, very open-minded, and I love it. I love it, and I think that's why going there would be a dream come true for sure. That's pretty much going to be it, right? Yes, it is. So there you go. That is 11 things not to do in Australia. And it was a pretty straightforward list, not going to lie. Nothing wrong with the video, of course. But I just feel like I already knew most of these, probably because I've been doing this channel for a long time now with amazing comments and community forums with you guys. I've learned a lot from you guys. So not going to lie, I pretty much knew most of these, but it was fun to see the list compiled nonetheless. Maybe if you learned something or you agreed with a lot of these, make sure to throw a thumbs up on this video, help it out. And subscribe if you haven't already. But by the way, we hit 50K. I'm so excited. Thank you guys, each and every one of you, so much. You don't know what that means to me. 50K really solidifies all the time and effort that we have put into this channel. I've put a lot of work into this, and I say we because even though I do most of the videos myself and I do all the editing and the thumbnails and everything, my wife takes care of the kids when I'm working. She puts up with me. The kids have been awesome, and they've been in some of our videos, and they're always just hilarious and well behaved, and it is a team effort. Not to mention you guys help us with a lot of things, and you give great suggestions and great feedback and tips and advice and everything. It's an excellent community. You know, you've heard me say that before. I'm just super proud of it. So thank you so much to 50K. If we hit 50K, which we did, that's just a huge milestone. Then anything's possible. That's how I look at it. So my dream has always been to get a YouTube play button and have my own channel, and I have my own channel, and we're halfway there. 100,000 subscribers gets you the silver play button, which I would love to proudly display. It would be amazing. So that's my next goal. So subscribe so we can get to 100K. It's going to take a lot of grinding, a lot of hard work, but I know we can do it. So I do appreciate every single one of you guys, for real. And lastly, check that description out. This original video here will be linked down there if you would like to check it out in the channel further. My link's down there. Discord's on there, really, really active. And of course, you can check me out on Facebook and Instagram at IWrocker. My name is Ian. You're watching IWrocker. Until next time, guys. Catch you later.